All right, and we're back on Monday night. Hopefully you guys had a good weekend. Your week is off to a good start. We got lots of things cooking over here on TikTok, YouTube, X, and Facebook. Again, appreciate you guys taking time out of your Monday night to come hang out with me. We have a ton of things to get into tonight, and we are down to the wire here. We have just a few days left for the bingo card to move across the line here in 2025. So you guys remember what I said? We got the Epstein files. There's still some more there. There's there. It just hasn't poked its head. It hasn't not reared its head yet. On the others, we have not seen the spike in oil. This one says YouTube isn't working. I mean, it seems to be working. I'm gonna go down here in the chat and make sure, because every time we run into technical difficulties. Okay, everybody says we're good. So again, spike in oil. We haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen BlackRock's ETF for XRP. Those are the two things left with 2 days left in the year that we need to see for a 3 or 4 digit XRP. But we are in the middle of the week. If it was a weekend, wouldn't happen because BlackRock couldn't launch their ETP or their ETF for XRP during the weekend. So it's likely that that would be announced on a weekday when they were going to do that. A lot of people will tell you that they couldn't launch one that quickly, and that would normally be correct. They would have to have a trust filed in Delaware, which they did back in 2023 and then swept under the rug. And they also have their BlackRock ETF, which they've filed an A8 for, which could also be just a spot XRP ETF. All you got to do is file it the right way, meet all the criteria, and then be able to go live same day approval by the SEC for that ETF if that's what they wanted to use it for. Now, that's a lot of speculation. How could you be, speculating like that, Jake? We'll see. We'll just have to see how things shake out here in the next 48 hours. We'll be counting down to the new year in just 2 days from today. I will not be on the live on Wednesday. I will be enjoying time with family and friends. And if things play out the way that I think they will, I will be in the Discord celebrating with everybody there. So hopefully you guys are ready for that. Hopefully, you are, you have some plans for New Year's. And, again, I have to say nothing here is financial advice, only for entertainment and educational purposes only. If you need financial advice, I would highly recommend going to check out digitalwealthpartners.net. Work with one of our advisors over there that can actually tell you what to invest in, including your digital assets or your crypto investments. The only RIA, pretty sure in the world, that's actually going to give you real advice on where to put your crypto, what to invest in, how to allocate that capital, mitigate risk, structure things the right way. End-to-end solution provider over there with Anchorage as our custodian for institutional custody on those accounts. So what's it going to take for oil to spike here? Because that's the other bingo card besides the BlackRock ETF. Well, we have Venezuela starting to stop oil production or put a cap on it, slow things down because of the seizing of the tankers off of the coast there by the U.S. government. And now we've had 2 more tankers seized in the Strait of Hormuz by Iran. So I know y'all remember when Israel and all of that kicked off earlier this year, there was actually a vote in Iran that would allow them to close the Strait of Hormuz if they decided to. They voted yes at that time. They haven't, acted on that yet. I'm still fairly confident that that is going to be the catalyst here that drives oil prices significantly higher and causes Japan to have to raise interest rates aggressively. We also had the Bank of Japan come out over the weekend and say that they are far behind or lower than the rest of the world for their interest rates. Kind of a wink and a nod that they are going to be raising those. Most speculate somewhere between 100 and 150 basis points or 1.5%. That would be astronomical. We would absolutely see the reverse carry trade unwind at scale. Silver. I don't know if you guys have been living under a rock or not, but if you haven't seen the price of silver lately, it's skyrocketed. And there's been a lot of people that have been stacking for a long time. Excited for those people. I said this in the Discord earlier today. Happy to be wrong on it, but I think silver has topped here. I don't see a way that they can allow silver to get over $100 an ounce. I'm going to go against the grain. There's going to be everybody that tells you, the opposite of that. They're going to tell you that it's absolutely going higher. You should FOMO. There's not enough, there's too much paper silver out there. The COMEX has got to shore it up, and they would be right. But I'm pretty confident that they're going to be able to magically find some silver somewhere to cover those losses. JP Morgan's not insolvent. And so that tells me that, the Fed provided them with some liquidity. Or maybe they actually pulled a rabbit out of the hat, went long on silver here recently, and actually made up the difference or the gains for their short positions or their naked short positions that they had open to spoof the market and hold the spot price down. If they have turned around like the hedge funds did on AMC and GameStop, they're still in control of the price on that stuff. They cannot allow that commodity to get above $100. There's too much production, too many actual physical items that utilize silver that would become cost prohibitive until they have something to swap that out for. Graphene would be a great option, but they got to be able to produce that at scale and then also involve it in the production process for all the goods that currently use silver. That's going to take time. So back to the COMEX, though. We have Basel III and the COMEX, or 589 on the COMEX, that is going to go into effect on January 1st. Who'd have thought? Wow. Just a couple of days away here, they're going to reprice commodities, and they actually have to have backing for all of them. They're going to be audited. There's not going to be able to, spoof the market and change things. I wonder what would have to happen in the next couple of days for them to, reprice all that stuff and get it to where they need it to be. I don't know. It'll sure be interesting to watch, though. We've got, like I said, 48 hours here. And you guys have heard me say 99.9999999% that I believe it will be 3 digits this year. Cool as a cucumber. Hanging out. And there might be a reason that I've used that number. So we'll see how things shake out in the next couple days here. But I'm pretty confident that it's going to go my way. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the super chats. I do have one that I missed last week that I'll get to first, and then we'll jump into all these over here on YouTube. Cheers to you guys. Again, appreciate you taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. All right. First super chat. J Texas 5 says, if I don't hold XRP, but I have 500K to place in a trust, what are the benefits of working with DWP? Can I make returns without XRP, or does DWP provide value independently without holding XRP? Merry Christmas. Thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the good question. So we do have traditional assets at Digital Wealth Partners that we advise on. It's not a huge portion of our business. Our expertise mainly lies in digital assets or crypto. And that is the main value proposition that we have. And that's our niche, that's our lane. We stay in that lane most of the time. But if we do have clients that have, other assets, 401k, IRAs, traditional stocks, bonds, things that they would like, a holistic view of their total financial picture in one place, then yeah, we absolutely can provide all those services. And our advisors are well equipped to advise on all the traditional assets. I would expect that if you were going to move a portion over, a portion of that would be put into crypto. We can also advise on other digital assets other than XRP. We're working on other products right now. We got a Bitcoin product that we're working to bring to market, aside from the other ones that we have. And then HBAR, XLM are probably next on the list. And then, we'll kind of work our way down. Solana and Ethereum, obviously, you can already stake and earn returns. Bitcoin's got the Babylon, product that we can put it in and earn about 2%. We work with Meanwhile and those guys to be able to issue life insurance policies in Bitcoin if you want to do that. And we have, again, many other assets that we can custody, including Avalanche, Quant, Chainlink, Matic, XLM, not XDC yet. We're working on that one. I think that'll probably be at some point in the first half of 2025 there at Anchorage. A lot of our clients do hold a significant position there. I'm rambling on here, but yeah, we can absolutely work with you to put that money to work and generate returns. We have access to annuities and all the other fun stuff that you would have at your normal wealth manager also. Our main value add and expertise, again, is in digital assets, though. All right. Run it back up to the top here, and then we will get into the super chats. We've got OMG Tracer. He says, legend. Any word on X Money still rolling out before 2026? And are we ready for the largest bamboo harvest the world has ever seen? Onwards and upwards with the 589 super chat. That's what I'm talking about. I don't know if you guys saw the bulbs, the number of bulbs that are in the light fixture that's going to be showcased there for the ball drop in Times Square this year, but it has 589 bulbs for the 2026 spotlight there. Pretty unique that's the number that they would pick. So yeah, I do believe X international payments are already live according to Elon, and I do think that there will be a high potential that right as we roll into 26, the rest of that will become available. And I do think that we are in for a very large harvest, depending on the size of the seeds you've planted and how long you've been watering those. Michael, my man, he says, do you know that the IMF released a document in March of 2023 called FinTech Notes, Trust Bridges, and Money Flows, a digital marketplace to improve cross-border payments? Ripple's XRP is named as an exciting model. That's very interesting information. The IMF has released many white papers over the years that reference XRP in particular as an option or unique strategy to provide value for that application. So it's no surprise to me that they would also point to that in that paper. I mean, you heard Gary Gensler talk about this when he was at MIT before he ever became chairman of the SEC and then pursued Ripple. Well, he didn't really pursue them. Jay Clayton's the one that filed the lawsuit about 5 years ago. I remember this was not a fun Christmas 5 years ago. XRP had run up to 70 plus cents, and then it plummeted back down after the lawsuit in early January, all the way to a bottom around 17 cents. Was rough. But here we are 5 years later, and we're past the lawsuit. We have bipartisan approval for digital assets. The Clarity Act looks like it's coming to pass here in early 2026. And again, like I've told you guys before, I'm extremely confident that XRP appreciates to a very high value before the Clarity Act gets passed. And I know there's going to be people out there that tell you that that can't happen. XRP already has clarity in the US. It has a moat. It's the only thing that can be used in a specific application to provide liquidity in a liquidity crisis at this moment in time. Now, if we had the Clarity Act passed, then yeah, I mean, there would be other options. But today, it's XRP. So, at least for the next couple weeks here, and again, I think within the next 2 days, we're going to see something fun. I think it'll be cemented. I think that it will become the backbone for financial markets and settlement, and it'll be very difficult to displace it on the other side of the Clarity Act being brought in. All right, on to the next super chat. We got Nick, my man. He says, been watching the reverse carry trade in oil, but losing hope. What's your thoughts on January? Crypto Aries still said 16 billion XRP on exchanges. What do you see? Sick of other YouTubers. Misinformation. Appreciate all that you do. Thank you for the kind words. Look, there's a lot of people out there reporting on stuff, and they're not wrong. Okay. I've been very blessed, and I'm very grateful to have been in positions to have conversations with people, to have a unique perspective that many other people that are native to digital assets might not have. And I am native to digital assets, but I am not a developer. I don't write the code. I don't participate in hackathons. I understand what the tech can do when it's applied. Okay. That's probably my expertise over some others. So when it comes to what's left on exchanges, there are absolutely 16 billion XRP held in wallets controlled by exchanges. There's an overlay on each one of those wallets for accounting that's internal that you cannot see in these exchanges. Just like at a bank, they could pool money in an account, but segregate it out. They all have their own routing number, right? This would be like a wallet address for an exchange for your XRP or your XLM. And then they have account numbers that would be like your tag number for your XRP that they owed back to you. So they pool the XRP in these omnibus accounts. Coinbase has 20 plus wallets. Uphold, I think, has 13 or more wallets. They all have a lot of wallets. And so if you added all of that XRP up, sure, there's 16 billion there, but what's actually available for trade? How much does retail actually hold on these exchanges? Well, when you really get down to the nitty gritty, there's not much left on the OTC desks. There's not much left in the dark pools, and there's not much left for actual trade on the exchanges. If I'm a betting man, and I am apparently, because I have a bet that's due here in, again, about 48 hours, less than a couple $100 million worth of XRP is all that's left there after the ETFs have been eating up the supply for the past more than a month now. There's really not much left. And you know, the dark pool that Falcon X owns, they're going to be putting toward 21 shares, which they acquired, right? They're not going to be selling that to anybody else. They're a prime broker. They can use that as collateral. They can do things similar to Hidden Road. Coinbase Prime, kind of the same way. So again, they're going to be using that XRP that they have for their purposes. They're probably not going to be selling that to other people or allowing them to purchase it. Really, as the price escalates, the only liquidity source that people are going to be able to come after is retail. And there will be plenty of retail that sells. And we've talked about this before. You never go broke taking profits. You might regret them later, depending on what avenues there are in early to mid-January to be able to generate a return on your XRP in a very low risk, easy way. Pretty sure Digital Wealth Partners has something coming to market for that. And also lines of credit against them at fairly low interest rates. Borrowing against your assets, there's no tax implications there. You do have to service the debt. That's part of that deal. But if you have enough XRP, you could borrow against a portion and put the other portion to work and make enough on the other to service the debt against the line of credit that you borrowed. And then you never have to come out of pocket. That's free money you get to spend. And then as the asset appreciates, you can draw down more debt. As the loan gets paid off, you can draw down more debt. Many people do this. It's called infinite banking when you do it inside of an insurance policy. So there's going to be lots of avenues in the very near future for you guys to be able to generate returns on your XRP or yield on your XRP alongside, I think, much better interest rates for borrowing against it, especially as the price increases. So not telling you not to sell. Most people, again, are going to tell you to sell. They're going to tell you to take that money and go put it in something that they're doing. I want you to hold your crypto as long as you can. We've seen the people that have held their Bitcoin for, 15 years. They're doing really, really well. Probably a good game plan for people that are invested in crypto to just hold over the long term and then work with the right people to be able to generate cash returns on it and also borrow against it. So back to the amount listed on exchanges here. Again, I don't think that anybody's misrepresenting or misreporting things. I think that they may just be ignorant to how exchanges actually operate internally and how much XRP is actually available for purchase. And so supply and demand dynamics would be very skewed in comparison to what they might believe is available on the market. All right, scrolling on down here, we got some other good super chats. All right, we got Green Boy. He says, hey, Jake, people say XRP is running ONG out. How many in AVA also still for that $100 XRP? Running long out, how? I don't know exactly what they're asking here. I am still very bullish, and I do think that things are going to be moving here in very, very near future. We got EINs. I say legend. Is your choice of 99.99999 related to Ripple's service level agreement? Second, what are the 2 purple dots in the box of BG123's latest riddle? These are good questions. We can throw the tinfoil hat on here for a second. The 99.99999 is more related to, I think, when price will move. Again, people are like, you got a couple of days left. I'm not worried about a couple of days left. I'm worried about like imminently close to the new year where price is at. And second to that, what are the 2 purple dots in the photo that Bearable Guy laid out this year? If you don't know who Bearable Guy is, he's a riddler, a fool, a jester bear that has posted things for a long time, all the way back to 2017 or 2018 on Reddit, excuse me. And then he also has the Twitter accounts for Reverse Bearable Guy and the Forward Bearable Guy. And every year, the day before Christmas, he puts out a new photo that you can then decipher and figure things out about. And it's always related to XRP and Ripple and what's going on. I don't know if you guys have ever, like, caricatures and the cartoons that started in newspapers. They were actually like satire that made fun of oligarchs and kings and people that were in power at the time, but they would hide behind the humor in these cartoons that they made. Similar here. I think if you were a cryptographer, you had insider information, you might leak that out through some means, right? You can't come out directly and say it because you have NDAs, you have things put in place that you can't talk about. So how do you do that? How do you help people stay positive and hopeful and build characteristics that they would need to be successful on the other side of wealth? I think that they've done a good job, whoever they are, of putting stuff out that have led people to the right thing over time. But anyway, back to this year's picture. I don't know what the 2 dots are in the first package that's opening on the moon. If I had to guess, maybe one would be a comma and the other one a decimal place. And that's how you're looking at a 4-digit XRP. Let's see here. Scrolling on down, we got another one. We got Roscoe. He says, disabled Army veteran. Thank you for your service, brother. Really appreciate you. I have other family members that have served and it's taken a toll. So thank you for what you did and continue to do. Living on disability payment, which you deserve, by the way. He says, we give $100 per month to our Carbon One and have left funds left over for XRP, shy of a few G's to onboard. Huge faith. How much longer we have to wait till we join DWP? If you're in the mastermind, we're always going to take care of people there. We will raise the minimums, we will raise costs and things, but there will always be benefits for being part of the mastermind group. So if you are in there, you will still be able to. I'm sure if you're very close to onboarding now, you will absolutely be able to onboard when XRP is $1,000. Now, for the general public, we will likely be moving the minimum to $20 million to work with digital wealth partners on the other side of price appreciation. The only way that you will be able to get access for less than that is through an affiliate entity or the mastermind. Always want to provide more value there. Loyalty is a big deal. We take care of people that take care of us. And, again, that's just one way that we try to give back to the community there. We have a ton of in real life events. We actually have an event on St. Patty's Day in Nashville next year that is becoming rather large. Have a lot of people that are coming to that. If you want to learn more about the mastermind and participate there with the in real life events, the financial education, and access to all of the benefits that we provide, you can go to beyondbroke.com and you can use the code BeyondBroke, capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, or month, the abbreviation, gets you the first month for, I think, 10% off, $5 off social, and $10 off on Carbon One. Post price appreciation. So again, with my bet and everything that we got going on here in a couple days, we will be locking down the mastermind. If you are not in, you are not in. It'll be very difficult to get in after the first of the year. And so you want to go ahead and move that direction if that's something you're interested in. Again, it'll be invite only, and it'll be much, 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 much more expensive to participate in the group. So again, that's beyondbroke.com, and you can use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, also capitalized, get you the first month for a small discount there in the group to check it out and see if it works for you. Long stride, XRP, I like it. They say, Jake, huge respect for the clarity and consistency you bring. Your work elevated understanding in the space. Thank you for that, man. Or lady. I don't want to misspeak here. Thank you for the kind words. I don't. I just want people to understand what's going on, and I try to break it down and make it simple. There's other people that want to make things complicated. Even if you talk to some of our advisors, and I do my best not to do this, but there's obviously jargon that's specific to the industry that sometimes I, rattle off just, for context. People might not have the understanding yet. They have to look things up. I try any acronyms. I try to spell out so people can go look them up. But anyway, thank you for the kind words. And I try to make it easy for people. They say, I'm a Carbon One member and paid the onboarding fee to DWP with ETF inflows. Why is XRP still falling? Buy the dips. We're back to an oversold spot on the chart. I'm not a chart person. I deal with the macro. But for a supply shock, we're about to the level where that makes sense. The price needs to be lower and lower so that they can buy more and more off of the exchanges and over the OTC desks and the dark pools so that there's not much left. The greater the inflows over there on the ETFs, the more they're able to buy if the price is lower. So if they continue to push the price down through other means, they're able to accumulate more XRP before price appreciation happens. Because on the other side of that, it's going to be very difficult for many people to even get access to XRP. I don't know if you will have to be a qualified purchaser or an accredited investor, or you have to have a private banker, or there's probably going to need to be some relationship you have or access point if you're not familiar with how to use the DEX and the technology to be able to get access to this stuff. Because I don't think it's going to be available on the exchanges. I think exchanges I don't think they'll delist XRP. I think you'll always be able to sell your XRP. I just don't know that there will be much available for sale for other people to buy, even, you know, at a high price point. I think it'll be like gold. You know, we've got gold trading at $4,500. There's a spot premium that's above that, probably $5,000 an ounce to buy any type of physical gold at this point. Silver, if you go buy that, you're probably in the $80 range or higher, even at a $71 silver. Probably higher than that, probably 90 at this point across most of them, because a lot of people have been buying it at the high price, right? And they're able to get that on the spot premium. So I think it'll be the same way for XRP. I don't think there'll be a ton available, and the people that are willing to sell it will sell it at a much higher price. And so that's why they're, you know, pushing the price down now to stack as much as they can before things roll out here. We've got Kryptonium. They say, Big J, what's up, man? Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. From the Carbon One call today, you mentioned that there may be a repricing of commodities. XRP is considered a commodity, right? What are you doing? I'm trying to fix something. Tea lady. So yes, that was kind of the whole point of the call today. XRP, I believe, has full clarity as a commodity here in the US. It's listed on Bitnomial, trades with USD, same way Bitcoin and Ethereum, which were both, you know, explicitly called out by the CFTC chair as commodities. If it's traded and listed on Bitnomial the same way that they are, why wouldn't XRP also be a commodity? And that also allows, you know, Ripple Prime and Ripple and any of the other people that want to use XRP to understand exactly how it's going to be taxed, what it looks like, how it can be used, all those things, again, before the Clarity Act is in place. And, you know, we talked about in the Mastermind today when they repriced gold. I don't think that they'll have to do that this time. I do think that there will be a peg between gold and oil that will hold true. And then XRP will be free floating, but backed by the volume of exchange or trade on the network as it's implemented on the backside of markets. But they got to push it to a price where it can be used in that capacity. And that's where the ETFs come in and the inflows when they have to move to the exchanges to buy the XRP. The amount of demand that you're going to see once BlackRock rolls their ETP and the exchanges need XRP and everything rolls all at once is going to push it to 3 and 4 digits in a very, very short period of time. So once it's that high, then they can start using that as liquidity to settle the back end of markets real time. And we're good to go. It'll be a high stable value for the duration of our lifetimes. So, you know, if you're here and you're listening to this now, you are a few days early. So, again, not financial advice. I'm just some crazy guy on the internet. You always want to make your own financial decisions. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. You can take it or leave it. Again, I'm not your financial advisor, but if you do need one, we have them at Digital Wealth Partners. Nick, my man, he says, hey, Jake, Beyond Broke Mastermind here. Awesome, dude. Glad to have you in the community. I am a cop in the Northeast. My squad on night staff also owns XRP. We all discuss it. Not that my coworkers are crypto pirates, but word spreads. Guys gossip. I never share the number of XRP I own. Any safety advice or tips? Well, I mean, I don't know if you're the same gentleman that I've talked to before, but he was like, everybody in my office owns a decent amount of XRP, and when it goes, like, we're probably all just gonna quit, which is not good for public servants. Like, they're gonna be in a bad spot if all those police officers are like, yeah, you know, we're good now, we're leaving, which I don't think you guys would do, right? Like, being first responders, I think there's a high level of discipline, and again, I appreciate everything that you do for your community and for all the people that live there in the Northeast around you. People don't know what, you know, public servants put up with. So again, appreciate that. But when it comes to the XRP, this is something I've suggested for almost everybody. And it's something we do for our family office clients. So whether you are, $20 million of net worth or more, it doesn't matter. These are some things that you can do to mitigate animosity when people come to ask you for money, which is inevitably going to happen because you've told some people that you own XRP and you've probably tried to get them to buy some, or at least told them to research and they can do, what they're going to do from there. I would set up a financial committee and a family board. So, 3 to 5 people that are going to help you make investment decisions, and then another 3 to 5 people that are in your family that can veto things or step in if there's something that those 3 do or decisions that's made that's outside of certain lanes. So let me give you an example. Your financial committee could be, again, your wealth advisor, maybe it's your CPA, and then it's you and one other family member that is extremely competent, has a background in banking or finance, something like that. And you need criteria for what you guys are going to invest in. So most family offices, they have a lane of expertise, an investment thesis that they've written out in their, family charter or their compass. And that's what they stick to. So if they say, hey, we're going to invest in, digital assets, real estate, and private equity, and the private equity is going to be in these type of companies, and the real estate is going to be in these types of pieces of real estate, this is like what we feel comfortable with and competent in, and that's our lane, and we're going to stick in it. Anything outside of that lane, the family board has to approve. Anything above a certain amount of allocation, the family board has to approve. And you need specific criteria and numbers for each one of those types of investments to even entertain them, right? So your cash on cash, your IRR, your ROI, your payback period. There could be lots of things for real estate. Same thing for private equity. You're probably, most people are going to be later stage private equity. If you wanted to de-risk, if you wanted to be riskier and have more upside, it's probably early stage private equity. Pre-seed, seed, series A, if it's on the earlier side. If it's later stage, it's B, C, D, and on. And again, you just want to figure out what your lane is and stick with it. And anything that's outside of that lane, have procedures in place. So when somebody comes to ask you for some money, for whatever reason, to start a business or to make an investment or a loan, you say, this is our criteria. We would love to look at it. That's how you answer it. Please put this together and bring it to the financial committee, or email it to me and I'll pass it on to them. And as long as it meets our criteria, we would love to participate and give you the funds. If it doesn't meet the criteria that you've structured, then it's a no. And then they can't really be mad at you because you didn't tell them no. You have a system and a process in order to protect and grow your wealth over time. And most people, I think, would respect that. And if they don't, you probably didn't want to do business with them anyway. And most of the people that, after you tell them that, they're never even going to bring you the proposal. They're not going to give you the data room. They're not going to show you the deck associated with whatever the investment was or the business plan. They're just, going to go on about their business because they don't have any of that stuff available, or they don't even want to put it together. So that would be my recommendation for people. Again, you don't need $20 million to set this stuff up. Most family offices, actually, if you're a single family office, you got more than $100 million. 20 million is kind of the threshold where you might start thinking about family office services. And that's why that's our minimum and threshold a lot of the time for that level of service. Bill pay, accounting, concierge service. It's also where it becomes affordable for the professionals that are good at those jobs to work for you and with you, to make sure that you're mitigating taxes and things are done the right way. And it's probably also the point where your portfolio is diverse enough that you need that, right? Like the average person that's just holding their assets in a cold wallet or has them staked somewhere that generates returns, it's pretty easy accounting. You don't have multiple businesses or multiple properties that you need to keep up with the title on. You don't have, businesses that need to make payroll. A lot of the stuff, you may have a bunch of personal bills that you want paid. We can absolutely do that. And that's actually low cost. But when it comes down to it, a lot of these services don't even make sense for less than 20 million. But that isn't to say that you don't want to set up a financial committee and a family board before you get to that place. We've got Redeem Me Dad Ventures. They say, hey, Jake, where do you think XRP's price will be in May, June of 2026 and also May, June 2027? Also, HBAR, XLM, ADA in 4 years from now. Thanks. Higher. No, it's too vague. I think XRP will absolutely be 4 digits by May, June next year, and then 27. But at that point, I think it'll be 5 digits. When it comes to HBAR, XLM, and ADA, those are all definitely going to be used in some capacity for the public or private sector. I think HBAR probably ends up the base layer for Web3 and dApps. I think XLM or Hyperledger ends up the main peer-to-peer merchant service network. Visa, MasterCard, those payment processing and flows. I think probably consumer-based stuff flows through Hyperledger, whereas back-end settlement for large market infrastructure is on the XRPL. And then things may float back to the XRPL also through side chains and other mechanisms like Axelar and Wormhole to be able to settle in XRP through batches on other networks. I got batch payments coming live on the XRPL, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months here. When it comes to ADA, I still don't know what the specific application for Cardano is. I've met Charles. We've seen him at multiple conferences, talked to him. Midnight's a big deal. I don't think people really comprehend the privacy layer that Midnight's going to provide all these different networks, including ADA, XRP, XLM, Bitcoin, Hedera. That's going to be a big deal. The zero knowledge proof and the privacy layer that's going to provide, it's needed. So, again, it's difficult to have a conversation around what those price points are going to be because I don't know how much adoption we're going to have had at that point. But if I go back to my thesis, I'll give it 5 years. Well, you're right, 4 years because it's 2026, a couple of days here. So that's 2030. So as we come into 2030, what is HBAR, XLM, and ADA worth? I don't know on ADA. I'm not even going to speculate on that one. I'm going to say significantly higher, but I don't know what price range. Both HBAR and XLM, I could probably speculate on as well. I could see 4 digits for both of those by 2030. Especially as we see, at that point, I've said this before, I think we'll have close to 80% of the entire economy tokenized over the next 4 to 5 years. And while that's the case, I mean, you're going to see huge payment flows and settlement across those networks and absolute high demand for those assets. So I don't think it's unreasonable at all to see a 4-digit HBAR. I do think that XLM probably caps out around $1,000, high 3 digits, and maybe HBAR is similar. So we'll say that. I think that both of those are just shy of $1,000 a piece in 4 years. And then ADA, again, it depends on the applications that get put onto that network. And then once I understand the total addressable market, total available supply, and other tokenomics, I could probably back into price prediction for that. But until then, I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate, guess. And another super chat from AAQUQ. They say, "Hey Jake, hope you're doing well. Come end of year, what do you think the bagpipes in BG's banner represent? Also, Brad has them in the latest drop. Happy New Year. Let's travel towards heaven." Absolutely, dude. Praying all the time, and hope you guys are too. So when it comes to, again, I posted this over there. I, again, normally don't partake in a whole lot of the riddle stuff out there in the public. Obviously, I find it interesting from my personal side of things. So the bear has, the last 3 years, posted something in the banner that showed up in the photo that he posted right before Christmas. So the first year was the sunflower, and then the sunflower was in the photo. The next year was the little tuft that looked like hay or whatever, and it was actually on the back end of the stampede string that the bear had on his hat in the hi-ho silver photo with the hidden road and Pearl Harbor. And then this year, the top of the bagpipe is what's sticking out of the snow, which is what he posted just a couple days before that that photo was posted. And if you go back and read the stuff on Reddit, again, I know this is a bunch of tinfoil hat for you guys, but people are obviously interested, so I'm going to answer it. He talks about a Quest 1, 2, 3, and it's just interesting to me that there's this in the banner, then it's in the photo, then this in the banner, then it's in the photo, and again 1, 2, 3 times in a row, it's gone from banner to photo. And if you believe 1, 2, 3 has a meeting, or any of the other stuff that those accounts have posted, then maybe that correlates with where we're at. And then you also have the musical notes between the two snowballs that are the little drummer boy beat. I think that could be a nod to the musical instrument that Brad is playing. Bagpipes used to be they're played in a bunch of different occasions, funerals. They're also played going into battle. They're also played as a celebration. So it's kind of a universal instrument depending on the tonality and what they're doing with it. It can be applicable in multiple venues and for occasions. So Brad holding that, I think that showcases Ripple's ability to be malleable, fierce, but also loving. I think there's a lot that goes along with that. Vanguard is another interesting thing. So if you're at the forefront of battle or moving into battle at the forefront, that is called a Vanguard. And with Vanguard, rolling out their ETFs or access to their ETFs here recently, maybe they're paying homage to that. Anyway, a lot of different places you can take all that stuff. If you've been here as long as I have, 5+ years, you can drive yourself crazy looking at all of it. But it is interesting nonetheless. And I do think that, again, price movement seems very imminent here. All right. My prediction is March or April. Okay. I'm going to be right, but I do think that things will be higher by then for sure. You could absolutely see 4 digits by that point next year. William, Mr. Parker, he says, "Hey Jake, thanks for the info and conviction. Saw your post showing 65 billion XRP in wallets. Is that correct? So could greater world players' actions determine timing? Also, so all 2025 XRP predictions fall short. God bless you." I think I'm going to be right down to the wire, but I think I'm going to get it. Again, coming down to the end of it here. I hope you guys are ready. So the 65 billion. So that's what's. So there's kind of 3 things. And again, people that are familiar with blockchain are only going to look at 2. They're going to look at total supply, or the tokenomics. So how many tokens have been issued, what the total supply of a token is. And then there's circulating supply, or what's actually, out there, not in escrow or held by a centralized authority, or has been minted, right? Like, you could have like XDC as an example. They have, I think it's 38 billion as their total supply, but there's only like 16 billion available. And they distribute those rewards for people validating things on the network through delegated proof of stake. So their foundation holds the rest of that. So the circulating supply out there is 16 billion, but the total available supply is 38.7 something billion. Now, what's available on exchanges? That's a completely different metric than what's locked up being staked on the network or held in accounts or cold wallets. And that's going to be the available supply. So you got total supply, circulating supply, and available supply. It's very difficult to discern or figure out what the available supply of any given token is, because the only metrics that you're going to have are the publicly transparent ones using a public blockchain, which would be how much is held in wallets on the network and what the total available supply of the token would be. So to figure out that other one, you would need to have conversations with executives or people at exchanges and OTC desks and dark pools and a lot of the people that I have conversations with. So, you know, again, there's a lot of people capitulating here. I'm not going to capitulate. I don't know if you guys have realized that or not at this point. I'm riding it till the very last second for 2025. So if you want to ride it with me, awesome. If you don't want to ride it with me and you think I'm crazy, also awesome. I don't mind either way. As long as it's respectful debate, I will entertain it. And yeah, there's been, again, a lot of people that, I don't know, when I have conviction on something and I feel very strongly about it, I'm not going to pivot or hedge. Other people do. David says, could BlackRock already own a massive, large, gigantic bag of XRP? And when price appreciation happens, they announce an ETF and make billions on the cost of XRP after price appreciation instead of announcing it before. No, BlackRock would not do that, David. Things that make you go, Look, you absolutely have to buy up XRP before you launch the ETF, because you have to have some supply to be able to sell in the ETF, right? Like you have to have at least some in there. Again, I've said this before and I haven't been as public about it. I've said it a lot more times in the mastermind, but I'll say it again here. BlackRock is significantly more involved than you guys realize. I won't say more than that, but that will become apparent as things progress. Cool Cubed says, Jake, lots of 589 drops the last couple days. COMEX rule 589. How does silver and potentially bank failures play into a liquidity crisis? Could it be silver that twinges, that is the twinkles, and not oil? So silver puts pressure on banks and institutions. Yes and no. And how I'll describe that is, it's kind of like look over here, don't look here. If you wanted to take attention away from the poor choices that you've made in order to back yourself into a corner, you might orchestrate a crisis that you could blame for being insolvent or further insolvent than you already were. So if oil just happened to spike because of, again, conflict in the Middle East or somewhere else, and it caused the reverse carry trade to unwind, that would be a much larger, news story than banks going bankrupt because they were, overextended in derivatives for futures or other derivatives for silver. But they might also orchestrate that so that they have an excuse and can get a bailout, or know what the bailout's going to be if they go that other direction, versus having to deal with their own mess that they've created by investing in metals or derivatives and paper. So that's my guess. I do think that we have banks that are insolvent right now because of silver. We've seen it pull back down a little bit. At $75 is really where JP Morgan is not happy. And I don't, like I said, I think silver is peaked at this point. If we do see it move higher again, I think you're going to see oil rear its head and cause Japan to have to aggressively raise interest rates here. I was watching a video somebody posted me this time last year, and I did say it then. I said, things could change in a 24-hour period. I don't know if you guys believe in, future proves past or anything, but that was New Year's Eve last year. We'll just have to see how things play out here in the next 48 hours. Counting it down. We got Jay King. He says, with a portion of XRP, with a portion off my XRP holdings in iTrust IRA, would that need to be inside an entity to work with DWP? How would that be accomplished? So no, an IRA is a wrapper. It is a qualified account. It can hold digital assets. And we can set you up an account there at Anchorage for your IRA. It does not have to be an IRA, LLC, or trust. Even though it can be, we can do all different types of IRAs. We do SEP IRAs, traditional IRA, Roth IRA, whatever you got. We can structure that account there at Anchorage alongside your LLC or your trust. It doesn't need to be inside them. We are already at the hour here, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the bottom down here. And I'm going to tell everybody to stop with the super chats. I don't like when people pay the super chat and then I don't answer it. So if you are here, please, no more super chats. I'm going to take the one at the bottom and I'm going to work my way back up my list here. All right. We got Living Soil. They say, should I trade ZBECK for XRP? You sound like you know something we don't. I cannot give you financial advice. All I can tell you is how I'm positioned. And then you can do whatever you want. I don't know what the tax implications for you selling ZBECK are. I don't know how much ZBECK you got. I don't know anything. I would need, as a financial advisor, I would ask you 20 more questions before I could even tell you or give you an advice. And if you want to work with an advisor to figure that out, they would love to work with you. You can go book a time with them. For me, though, I do not own any ZBECK. I've never owned any ZBECK. I've made a video about ZBECK. ZBECK will be around. It's going to be used. I've even talked about it in other interviews that I've done. The price appreciation on ZBECK and the type of collateral that it's going to be, it anywhere close, in my opinion, to what XRP is and is going to be. And so with that in mind, I don't invest in ZBECK. Maybe I'll diversify into that later. But currently, I only own XRP. I did buy, and again, full disclosure, a couple $1,000 of hash when it was like 2 cents. That's the first thing I bought besides XRP in 3 years. It's my flyer. I thought it was interesting after I did a video in it or on it, and then had the interview with Mike Cagney. We've talked to some other people since then that make me feel like that's going to be a winner over the long term, but it's a long-term play. It's not a short-term play. For me, XRP is absolutely the short-term play here that I will then leverage to diversify into other assets. Also, more crypto post-price appreciation. And if you do need an LLC, there's been a few people that have asked about that. Oh, wow. That was a good freezing picture there. Got to be able to laugh at yourself sometimes. Liners has posted the code here for the LLC. You can use it after the first of the year here. I don't know that this one's going to work any longer. So if you do want to get things structured and get it going, we are going to raise prices in January. So if you want to go ahead and take advantage of where things sit today, it's a $2,000 for end-to-end service on your LLC to manage your digital assets. The code is 50OFF50 OFFDAG LLC. They get you everything end-to-end for your digital asset holding company in Wyoming: anonymity, creditor protection, corporate veil, registered agent, EIN, articles of organization, certificate of good standing, a rep to work with to make sure that you have your articles done the right way, meeting minutes, board resolutions, all the fun stuff that you actually need in order to maintain creditor protection for your assets if you are sued personally. Robert, Mr. Sanchez says, Jake, appreciate you. Should I have one trust exclusively to own the crypto LLC and a separate trust to own everything else to pass on to my heirs? I don't know your situation, Robert. That could absolutely be appropriate, and it could also be much more expensive and complicated than you need. I would highly recommend speaking with a seasoned tax attorney or estate planner to put together your strategy or your wealth planning strategy over the long term. If you need somebody, we have Dan Plaskett on our team. He has been an attorney for 45 years, has done a large amount of estate planning, complex estate planning for high net worth individuals. I'm actually going to have a podcast that drops with him in the near future. Excited about that one. Shout out to Dan. He's come out of retirement to come help us out. So if that tells you anything about his tenure and how much he knows, he would be my recommendation. If you want to talk to him, all you got to do is email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, and we can set you up a time to talk to Dan or one of our other, trust attorneys to kind of work you through the situation that's going to be best for you and your family. Again, this may absolutely be appropriate, and it could also be way more complicated than it should be. I don't know that until there's a pretty long questionnaire that we'd have to go through. And I'm sorry I can't be more specific on that. I am not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. And without a lot of context, I wouldn't even be able to begin to give you good or accurate advice. I know enough to be dangerous, is what they say. Paul, he says, with the price of silver and gold, it seems to be crying out for a market crash. Will that play out in the next 60 to 90 days? Yes. Yes. Yeah, we are going to have the reverse carry trade unwind at scale. Again, we put on the tinfoil hat again for you guys. It was interesting to see, Bearable guy posted a satellite with the blue brick on it. And if you look at the other stuff, he talks about the last blue brick of light. This is also a common theme across all of the photos he's posted. I don't know if you guys remember 2000 and Y2K. What was supposed to happen there? Be interesting to see, if institutions and enterprises are backed into a corner where they're going to be down and out. If they don't make a change for something, they're going to make that change. I do think we're in for volatility. I think as a reverse carry trade unwinds, we're going to see downside in markets across the board, including Bitcoin. And again, that's going to happen very quickly on the other side of oil spiking. So just be prepared for that. Very likely in the very imminent future. Mo says, do you still see price going in 2 days? Yes, I do. I had to sell some and want to get back most of it back ski. Look, I've said this before, and I will just reiterate it here for people. Please do not over leverage yourself. I'm just some guy on the internet. Like, if you got rent to pay, if you've got bills, if you've got kids, if you've got normal bills, that's not money you should be investing. Okay? The responsible adult thing to do would be to pay your bills. Don't run up credit cards. Don't over leverage yourself. Don't put yourself in a position that you cannot handle if this doesn't play out in this time frame. Just because, it's right for me doesn't mean it's right for you. Okay? And just like I talked about with the previous gentleman, there's lots of situations that could be exactly right for somebody and completely wrong for somebody else. So just know that. Don't take on more risk than you're comfortable with or you can handle. And I know that's hard to do, especially if you're a type A person like I am. You want to, swing for the fence, and I am all about swinging for the fence. But, don't do it at your own demise. the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. I think we've already seen all of the irrational that we're going to see, and I think we're about to see, things shift here again. I wouldn't be as adamant as I am if I didn't really believe that. But do what's best for you and your family, and don't take excess risk that's unwarranted. Mohammed, my man, he says, how does JP Morgan and Swift affect the outcome? Would they be able to compete with Ripple and XRP's implementation? So I think early on they thought they could. And that's why I think they sided with Ethereum and Vitalik. And you've seen them build things like Onyx for their infrastructure and JPM coin. After the escrow was created in 2017, JP Morgan actually came to Ripple and wanted to buy the escrow. And Ripple told them no. And I think that is when things shifted. And they decided that they were going to do exactly what you mentioned there and try to compete with Ripple and XRP. I think that they realized after they sued them that that wasn't going to be possible. And the reason for that is other institutions aren't going to adopt something that JP Morgan or Swift implement. There's too much counterparty risk. We've already seen that multiple times, right? So the sanctioning of Russia and other countries, they don't want to be subject to one counterparty's discretion to be able to participate in the global economy. They're not going to succumb to that again. They will just invent their own system that's separate chips, right? Or if it's all the sanctioned nations, they'll just start feeding themselves and eventually pull other people over. You don't want to fracture the global economy like that. You'd like to galvanize it. Because that's a better benefit for everybody. The more commerce there is, there's more GDP, there's more money flowing around, there's more value created. Everybody wins in that scenario. And I think JP Morgan gets that, right? Swift does too. Now, will they use their own proprietary technology that's interoperable with XRP through some bridge? Yes. So as an example, I think Swift partners with R3. They've never told me that. There's been lots of conversations that I've had with them. But we'll have to see how that plays out. And guess what R3 uses as their primary settlement mechanism? It's not Solana. It's not XDC. It's the one thing that's got clarity here in the US. And that's XRP. So on the other side of price appreciation for XRP, I do believe that Swift will settle through XRP, but they will leverage Corda for the siloed ecosystems that are interoperable using the mainnet. And then separate of that, JP Morgan, obviously they have Onyx, but after XRP got designated, not a security here in the US, we just over the last couple of years have launched the EVM sidechain. Oh, what a weird development. Why wouldn't that be available before that happened? I wonder if somebody needed that integration to allow for their systems to be interoperable with XRP to settle. Maybe JP Morgan. Maybe that's why Axelar is created. I don't know. We'll have to see how things play out and where that value actually flows, but I think you guys are going to be surprised where it all ends up. Or maybe you won't be. Omar, he says, hey, Jake, do you think the gap will widen between the haves and have-nots? Is everything tokenized and you don't own assets? Are you just SOL? Thanks. Again, I don't think it's an all or nothing type thing. I think it's on a bell curve. The standard of living for the average person will come up on the other side of this. And it'll democratize access to investments that they've never been able to participate in before. So, especially when it comes to private equity, most of the time you need to be an accredited investor and you need proximity, you need deal flow to even be able to, and you need excess capital to even be able to participate, right? I think over the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see a huge democratization of access to all different types of investments, private credit, real estate, all kinds of things. And I think the securities laws are going to shift substantially with Paul at the helm there. And I think they'll rewrite a lot of these rules that fit a tokenized paradigm and will probably last another 100 years before they're changed. So with all that being said, I do think that there's going to be, there's always going to be the ultra wealthy. There's always going to be the 1%. That's never gone away. It's never going to change. It's the only reason that it feels like there's a big gap right now is because your money's fiat. It gets melted away by inflation all the time. And the bankers, like when they print money, the first people that get that money get the most purchasing power from it. As that money continues to move across the economy and get to the consumer base, it's worth less because the price of other things have already increased by the time they receive that money. So this debt-based system is going to go away. It's rolled back the other direction. The U.S. government went to J.P. Morgan and got bailed out in 1906, and now we're bailing them out now with the new system in the Treasury and things that we're going to roll in. And I do think that they will shore up our currency, and people will be able to use it as money. Because right now it's just currency, it's fiat, it's not actual money. It doesn't hold its value over time. So once they shore that up by gold-backed treasuries, and other countries do the same with oil, gold, and XRP as the backing, then yeah, I think that, again, the standard of living for the average person will come up substantially, and it won't feel like a huge wealth gap for everybody. Also, they're going to supplement people with UBI. And so if you're receiving real solid money and it's, $2,000 a month and we get a full repricing of markets and assets, I think we could go back to how things felt in the 2000s or, late 1990s. I don't know if you guys were around then. I was very young, but, people complained about how much stuff cost then, but it was 1/5 the cost of things now. I think that we could see a repricing of almost all assets in a similar capacity to that, and kind of teleport in time back to the values we saw in the early 2000s or the late 90s. So we'll have to see on that, but I don't think it's going to feel anywhere near as bad as it does for most people right now. I think it's going to be very different and beneficial. Jim Smith Photography Group. Thank you, Jim. He says, Jake, quick question. Many may hit. Mercury declined. My LLC policy, no issue. Laughlin suggested Old Glory, which I applied with now. Any other banks or recommendations for holding digital asset LLCs? God bless. Old Glory's been like fantastic. Alongside, if Mercury does approve, Mercury approves probably 70% of the people that apply out there. It is, they actually just changed their process. They want a website associated with your company. And they feel like if you don't have a website, you're probably not a legit company, which is not true, but that's how they see things. So Old Glory is going to be the best bet in the short term. And then again, Digital Ascension Group is going to be bringing a product to market in Q1 that I think you guys are going to be excited about. That will, when you form the LLC, you will have a bank account associated with it almost immediately. Oh, my camera it's probably my internet. You have fiber and you think things are going to be fast, and every once in a while it still freezes on you. V-Train, he says, Carbon One member here, not financial advice. If I were to have a long in for XRP, if the long hand a multi-million-dollar payout to mitigate taxes, should I buy XRP with profits and then loan against the XRP for taxes? Okay, so you're going to make money on a long options trade with some leverage, it sounds like. And when you make that money, you're obviously going to, execute the option and take that cash. And then you're suggesting buy XRP with it, borrow against it, call it 30 or 40% against it, and then pay the taxes with the loan. I wouldn't. I mean, one, I don't know that you're going to be able to buy XRP at that point. And two, I just put your, like, if you believe in the upside on XRP, I guess that makes sense. And you could also put the XRP to work, but to be able to cover the taxes on that, I would prefer to already be in XRP when it's experiencing the upside versus waiting to later. And then it makes a lot more sense to borrow against it because you're going to have huge cap gains if you liquidate versus if you're in cash and you're basically executing the option, you're going to have to accept that money. I mean, you could fund a life insurance policy and borrow against the life insurance policy. I don't know how many multi-millions it is, but you could do PPLI if it was enough and buy XRP inside of the PPLI policy and borrow against it to cover the taxes. And then that XRP would grow tax-free inside of that policy. You could also trade it with no tax implications inside the policy. You need a financial advisor if you're domestic here in the US or Canada to oversee that policy, but they can help you make a bunch of money inside there and then you can continue to borrow against it over your lifetime. If I had a large lump sum of cash, that's probably the way that I would go, especially post price appreciation for XRP. Unless it was another asset, I might buy HBAR or hash or something else that I thought was going to do well over the long term. I don't know that you'd want to borrow against that immediately. And I don't know what availability would be to be able to borrow against that immediately also. I don't know. It's a good question that you should ask a financial advisor. And I'm not one of those. They could absolutely help you over there at Digital Wealth Partners, though. GI Kai says, legend. Appreciate you. Carbon One, been stacking XRP since December of 2024. When I stumbled onto your content, just over 20,000 XRP now. I appreciate everything that you do for the XRP community. You're a genuine human being, Jake. Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words, appreciate you being part of the community, and congratulations on your ability to get to that number over the last year. The price point's been substantially higher than what it's been in the past. And so for you to be able to accumulate that, kudos to you. All right. Here we go. Legacy's always in the clutch with super chats. Ray, he says, what's up, legend? What's up, Jake the legend? Thank you. When do you think the zero interest option will be available with borrowing against XRP, and how will that work? Also, do you happen to have an NDA with the events happening end of year? I'm going to opt out on the second question. But for the first one, I don't know that you'll ever get a zero interest rate against XRP. Even premium collateral, you're going to have to borrow at whatever the prime rate is. So whatever the prime rate is what I think we're going to get as the best option against XRP. Now, similar to how things work today, if you were to lend your crypto or borrow against it, if you hold it on a platform that gets to leverage it in some way, they will let you lend at a lower interest rate because they're going to generate additional yield with that crypto. That's rehypothecation. Most people don't want to do that. They would rather pay the higher interest rate so that their assets stay right there and they're not rehypothecated and there's no additional risk associated with that company going bankrupt, like we saw with Celsius and Voyager and FTX. Now, as things progress here, and we have pseudo accounts on the XRPL, I believe that you will be able to participate in liquidity pools, and you'll have borrow lend on chain. So the way that I'm looking at this is, let's say there's a counterparty that we trust that is willing to accept a reflection of the XRP out of Anchorage. So your XRP stays in Anchorage. We reflect it with them on their balance sheet. They do whatever they're going to do with it. Hopefully it's super low risk. I would, again, if we're working with them, we're going to make sure of that. Somebody else, I don't know. But for us, we're going to make sure it's super low risk. And, they'll pass back the returns to the client. that might take a form like a CD or something, where you say, hey, I'm going to give it to you and you're going to be able to reflect this for 6 months or a year and use it on your balance sheet to generate returns for your company and pass us the majority of it. The next thing that you could do is if you get an issued asset against that, it's a taxable event, which is stupid, even though it's the same representation of value. If it's transferred to another network, it's a taxable event. So I don't know how things currently work with XLR, but I think they meant MXRP. And if you get that in exchange for your XRP, based on the tax laws that exist today, that would be a taxable event because the XRP is now locked on XLR's network and not on the native network. Flare doesn't do that. Flare just reflects that value on their blockchain. So the XRP stays on the XRP ledger, it's escrowed, and it's reflected over there through price oracles. Very different than the XRP actually moving to the other blockchain and being exchanged for a value. So just be aware of that if you are participating in those things. When it comes to the lowest interest that I think you're going to be able to get is if you do borrow lend at the same time. So you're lending the XRP to them, they're able to generate some return on it. Again, ideally it's locked in your account, and then you're also able to borrow against the same financial product. So let's call it a CD. You're able to get 4% per year on your CD if you just leave it there. But if you wanted to borrow against that CD, you could borrow at like 3%. Now that counterparty is going to make, however much they are for trading it on their balance sheet, and an additional 300 basis points for your loan. So now you're borrowing at 3%. That's really good. Or 2%, 2 to 3% is where I think the highest leverage opportunities are going to be with XRP to be able to borrow against it. But there's never going to be a zero interest rate for XRP in my opinion. Would love to be wrong on that one. A couple of the other super chats over here. We got Trade Man. Thank you for the super chat. They say, good evening, legend. Thank you. Carbon One member, thanks for all that you do. Can you explain the process of getting the LLC and living trust through your site once you complete the purchase? What all info do I need? Thanks again. Happy holidays to you and your family. It's a great question. So you're going to need a name for your living trust and your LLC. This is where a lot of people get hung up for some reason. You don't want it to be crypto related. You don't want it to be your name. Your trust can be your name, but the LLC that you're using to operate ideally would provide some more anonymity than that. I would recommend, probably not naming either one something that's blatantly obvious who you are. If your last name's Smith, doesn't matter. Or some other last name. My last name's very familiar. Like people would be able to figure out who I was if my last name's on something. Claver is not common. So depends on that aspect. What I like to do is I like to think of things that mean something to me and my family and abbreviate them or spin the letters around into something and use that as the name for stuff. So it means something to us, but other people aren't going to have any idea that it's associated with our family or myself or my kids, right? So you're going to need that. You're going to need all of the normal information that you would need to file an entity, which is your social security number, date of birth, stuff to be able to identify you. You are the beneficiary, the ultimate beneficiary of the LLC, but your information is not going to appear on any public documents because of the way we file it. So they're going to ask you for, all that information. You're going to set, when does your, tax year end? You're going to say December 31st, like everybody does. You could make it September if you wanted to. You do get to change that once every 10 years if you want to. So if you do find yourself up against a wall at the end of the year and you want to backdate your financial year to the month before, make it like, November 31st or September, then you can do that and you get a whole nother, 9 months, whatever it is, to mitigate your taxes or spend that money that you made. That's a common way that I've seen people. It's a loophole. to be able to mitigate taxes. So anyway, back to this deal. What was that? Lost my train of thought. Oh, it's over here, the LLC. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty easy process. So you go through, put in the code. It's half off, 50 OFF DAG LLC. I think half off also works. And then you get everything for $2,000. If you want the living trust, that is going to go up. It's currently $500 to add that on. The cheapest thing that you could possibly find for a real living trust out there. It's registered in your state, and they also help you move all the assets in there. So highly recommend taking advantage of that before the end of the year, because that is going to increase. It'll probably double. So pretty simple. They email you. They're going to, you pay, you get an email, click into the link, fill out the information, they go file it. It is going to be a while before you get the LLC back. I'll just state this for people that are filing right now. Because I just want to be transparent with you guys. I don't want you to feel like, Jake didn't tell me. The IRS is on vacation until the 6th. So they're not going to be submitting any EINs, and there's going to be a backlog of EINs that they have to get to when they show back up. So if you're filing something today, just, be aware you're probably not going to get it to sometime between the 6th and the 10th of January. Again, prices are going to go up after January. So it's at your discretion. If you want to wait till later, do it now. It's up to you guys. Can take up to 10 business days. And it can take up to longer if you choose a name that's already been registered somewhere else. So just be aware of that too. And that's why I like unique names that is going to mean something to you, but other people aren't going to recognize what they are. All right. Then we got DFW Mike, my man. We got a lot of cool people in the mastermind hosting local events all over the US. Shout out to you guys. That's probably like the coolest thing. Like we've done a lot of in real life events for the community as a whole, but to see other people that have put together, I don't say cliques, but like local communities of good people that have interest in XRP and financial education, kind of like chapters. There's starting to be like little chapters of the Beyond Broke Mastermind all over the US, which is incredible. Got 18,000 people in the mastermind. And again, we're probably going to shut that down January 1. So if you do want to be in the mastermind, I would highly recommend going ahead and using the code Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, get you the first month with a little discount there. And it's likely, as we see price appreciation for XRP, like I've said a long time, we will be locking that down. It will be invite only, and it will be a much higher price for those that want to participate later. So back to DFW Mike. He says, legend. I wish I had your energy. Thankful I only have a few more days to be poor. My better half says hello to you, to your better half. We are looking forward to our post-price appreciation appointment with your team. Have an awesome freaking new year. You too, dude. I think everybody that is watching this, if you own some crypto, specific cryptos, you're going to have a very, very good new year. So excited for you. Again, appreciate all that you do for the community, Mike, and the kind words, all the support. And again, people like Mike, just be like Mike. None of this matters without you guys. If y'all didn't want the services that we're creating, if you didn't care about the content, I am blown away. I'm so humbled every single day. I feel so grateful for all the wonderful people that we get to work with. It is a complete blessing. And so just kudos to you guys. If people didn't want the institutional custody, they didn't want ways to generate returns on their XRP, they didn't want lines of credit against it, they didn't want ways to be proactive and structure their estate to mitigate taxes and set themselves up before price appreciation, our business doesn't matter. None of this matters. So shout out to you guys. And again, thank you for all that you do and all the support. It does mean way more than you guys know. So thank y'all. And then I already did Long Stride. He's also over here with the good super chat. We got a couple more. We'll run it down for another 25 minutes here, and then we'll wrap it up tonight. We already did this one because I told Ray I couldn't answer the second half of his question there about the NDAs around the end of the year. Let's see here. Rosh says, have you seen Lewis Jackson's video on a deep dive into XRP fundamentals? He shows that utility will not drive price. He's not. Okay, well, if that's what he's saying, then he's not wrong. I've said that the whole time. They're going to have to push the price through supply and demand dynamics to the levels it needs to be in order for utility to take place. And then there'll be a price floor. People thought that, ISO would be live and XRP would shoot to the moon. It's not going to be that way. They literally have to reprice it through supply and demand dynamics. And when there's not much available supply and there's a huge amount of demand, guess what happens to the price? If you took economics in high school, you saw the chart, it goes up and to the right. So that's what's going to happen. And once it's at that high price, then it can be used. So I haven't watched that video that Lewis put out. I've said this before, I do pretty good to just stay in my lane. A lot of people ask me questions about other people's content, which I don't mind, but I don't have the time to go watch it like I used to. I'm focused on building solutions and creating, all the stuff that we're doing at Digital Ascension Group. And I did have some more time the last week here to be out on social media a little bit more, which is nice, and that's just because at the end of the year, like, I can't push things forward because everybody else is off. And I also feel like anxious about that. But it is what it is, right? Like, I can't change that. So I have been spending a little bit more time, and I probably could watch the videos, but I don't know if y'all have ever, like, Blockchain Backer I watch. I'm not a TA guy. I watch him for the technical analysis. And he's been spot on with a lot of his stuff, I don't think he's going to be right. Again, I think the price action we're about to see in the market, he's not prepared for, and that's okay. It's a market dynamic that's never existed before. It's a black swan. It's something that people didn't see coming. I just happen to know what's going to happen. So difficult to price that in or look at historical evidence to price it in. Anyway, back to Blockchain Backer. What I do really respect about him and like a lot is that he stays in his lane. He doesn't watch other people's content, and he thinks critically about his thesis and iterates on top of that. And you get really unique perspective that's nuanced and a high level of expertise and standard that he's able to put out because of that. And I try to stay in that same mode. I look at what I'm doing. I look at those, the strategic advantage I have is I'm speaking with people that other people don't, and again, not to be biggity, but like, I have the privilege of speaking with a lot of people that other people would love to speak to, either through the podcast that we have on here or through other business relationships and partnerships that we have. And so in those conversations, I don't ever derail them or ask stupid questions like, when's XRP going to moon? I just listen and try to discern, timelines based on actions and visceral reaction if I do say something about the asset. I'm never disrespectful, and I don't ever want, like, I don't know. When I'm talking to those people, it's business. It's not the fun part of the speculation. So anyway, I would love to have more time to watch other content creators' videos, but unfortunately at this time I do not. And I don't think for the near future I'm going to be able to do that. Or we'll go ahead and address it. Why not? Matcha King says, Zach Rector's tweet, so sad to see Jake still misleading people, calling for $100 XRP before the end of the year. I'm shocked he hasn't admitted defeat yet. Well, he's right. If I was going to pivot, should have pivoted by now, unless I know something. Why wouldn't I? Interesting. So we'll see what ends up happening by the end of the year. We'll see where the price is. And I think results will speak for themselves. And I wish Zach the best. He's always like, until here recently, I thought we were cool. I don't know what I did or didn't do. Tried to call him, didn't answer my call. So I don't know, man. Is what it is. If anybody's got a problem with me, I've said this before, you got my cell phone. All the other content creators out there do. All you got to do is call me. And I'm happy to have a conversation or weed through things. I don't know. I want everybody to win. I've said that lots of times. I don't view anybody as competition. And I also don't want to divide the community, right? Like we've been through too much crap together and had everybody else at our throats. Why do we need infighting? It's not good. And I've already proven this. Like me and Verson had some beef. He called me. We had a conversation. We worked through it. We're good. Other people were talking about, like T and I disagreeing the other day. I'm fine with respectful debate. I don't mind that at all. I think all of these people are highly intelligent, articulate, well-spoken. They get kudos and should from the community for providing great insights over the last couple of years and helping people maintain hope when things didn't look so great. So, you know, to come down to the last little bit here and have whatever this is, I don't know, just a little bit disappointing on my side. And that's okay. Like I said before, you know, a couple lives ago, I would rather know now, you know, who is real and trustworthy, rather than, you know, post price appreciation, find that out in another way that's much more costly. So is what it is. He hasn't ever, you know, explicitly called me out or named me. It's been more of like this catty side tone thing. Again, I don't know what I did or did not do. He did not answer my phone call when I tried to call him. So it is what it is. We got L. Wright says, Jake Griffin. I will take the compliment, my man. If you think I look like Blake Griffin, I will take it. He says, what's up, bro? Has someone from BlackRock told you they're rolling something out before 2026 that would cause a supply shock? No comment. We got Silent Giant. They say, hey, Jake, when XRP appreciates, do you think other cryptos like XLM, XDC will rise with it? Thank you for making end of 2025 exciting. Absolutely. Not to the assets, though. I think XRP is going to decouple from everything else. I don't. If I thought all of them were going to rise together, I would probably own those other assets. I don't. And the reason for that is in 2023, when BlackRock filed their ETF trust there in Delaware for XRP, their iShares XRP trust, XRP decoupled from the rest of the market. It doubled in 30 minutes or less, and none of those other cryptos moved. And so I do think that there is going to be a supply shock specific to XRP to push it to the value that we need for the Cambrian explosion to take off. And then XLM and HBAR will be a gradual rise to the upside as more volumes on, you know, used over the networks. XDC2, I think, will also grow like that. Very similar to like Solana. I think that there'll still be significant moves to the upside. I just don't think it'll be as rapid as XRP. And so, you know, again, this is just my thesis, not financial advice. Would highly recommend doing your own research. Diversification is not a bad thing. Diversification is a hedge against ignorance. So if you don't have full discernment that something is the better choice, it's probably better to be diversified. P money. Says the ball's on Jake to hold this prediction. Should tell you everything you need to know. I'll keep defending against the X nerds. Appreciate that, man. Look, I'm either going to be right or I'm not. But I've said it before. I'm going to be right. We got David O. He says, do you see XRP utilized by EasyPass? I've seen other people do ticketing on Avalanche and some of the other networks. I'm not familiar with EasyPass, so I don't know. Again, you guys try to remind y'all. If I don't know something, I'm not going to talk about it. I will just tell you that I don't know. So it's possible. I don't even know that that has to do with ticketing or what it has to do with. I'll have to do some research on EasyPass and then come back to you, David. Mr. Johnson. Luke Bennett, thank you for the super chat, my man. This person says, is Jake Bearable guy? I am definitely not Bearable guy. I am not that smart. Whoever is Bearable guy has like accessed the Akashic record and can time travel. It's not me. Shane, he says legend and the wonderful tea lady. Shout out to Mrs. Claver. He says Carbon One custody vet here. What's your favorite holiday memory you can share? Thanks for all you Max and the mods do. You all rock. Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words. Favorite holiday memory. There's a lot of good ones. You remember things different than how they actually transpired. I have pictures of when my kiddo was young, and we took him to go see Santa, and we took him to like light parks and stuff. My favorite thing in the whole world is to watch my son experience something new. Like, just gives you gratitude for things that you think are mundane. You get to re-experience it through your child's eyes, which is really cool. So, like, you know, sunsets and sunrises, first time you saw those, like, you've seen thousands of them over your lifetime, probably. But to watch like the excitement and the thrill of that amazing thing happening that they've never seen before is probably one of the coolest things about being a parent. So those are my favorite memories. Not anything to do with me. Just watching him experience different stuff has been really cool. Cartwright, he says, Jake, from one legend to another, God showed me the XRP via you on YouTube on 10/17/2025. Since that day, I've stacked as hard as possible and I'm pushing the top 3% ranking. No question. Just thank you. May God bless you and your family. Thank you, man. You did awesome. You got in at a very good time. If it was 14 months ago, before the rally, you were somewhere between 40 and 50 cents, or maybe up to 60 cents that you were stacking there. So still doing pretty good. And I think you're about to do a lot better. Rosie Rios, Dennis, my man, he says she's announced she will be lighting the New York NYE 2026 ball and lights with 589 bulbs again on July 4th Eve, claiming it used new tech. What do you think? I don't know if you guys know who Rosie Rios is, but she's the previous treasurer of the United States. And her name was on $1.7 trillion globally. She's on Ripple's board. She got on their board during the lawsuit. Like, you can't make it up. It's very well scripted. for those that are paying attention. So pretty cool is all I'll say to that one. Truth of Hearts says, shout out to the general chat, the mastermind. Also, go vote for Jake on X. Love KT, Baby, and Rob. Thank you for the shout out, Truest of Hearts. And appreciate you being part of the community. Again, if you want to get in, you got 48 hours. I'd highly recommend getting into the community now before XRP does go to the numbers that I've been talking about here at the end of the year. So, again, if you want to do that, you can use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month with a little bit of a discount there. And again, it's going to be way, 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 way cheaper than it is to wait. And also, it's going to be invite only. We're not going to have anybody being able to join without some pretty significant scrutiny moving forward, because we want to protect that community. So that's where things are at. You've got, again, call it 48 hours, maybe less. Depends on how quickly things play out over the next couple days here. Cotton says, Jake, Beyond Broke Mastermind social member here, Wyoming LLC and Living Trust. Awesome, dude. Congratulations for being proactive. He says, I am set and I just want to help my 2 adult sons by hiring them as managers of the LLC. Don't want to trigger potential foreign entity in Texas, our home state, via required employment documents. Thoughts? I would set up another LLC in Texas that employs them to do whatever you're going to have them do. There does need to be a real business. That business can be managed by your holding corporation or owned by your holding corporation there in Wyoming. And then money could flow from that LLC back up and back down the other way. And then you would still be able to maintain your anonymity there without having to foreign register that LLC here to do business in the state. I would form another entity in Texas that, again, your information is going to be associated with that one. You could employ them out of that other company. And as long as you're not physically doing business here, so like you don't have a storefront, if you're investing all over and it's with crypto that you're doing stuff that's on a blockchain that's non-jurisdictional, then you're still not going to have to foreign register the entity. Same thing if you're in California, same thing if you're in New York. If you have a holding company that manages those assets and you don't have a physical business and location and employees, like doing physical work, you're not going to have to register with that counter state. We are coming to the end of the broadcast here. We'll grab a couple more and then we'll wrap it up tonight. Matt, my man, he says, the lawsuit told me XRP was priceless. Bearable guy kept me intrigued. Blockchain backer kept me level. And you and the Beyond Broke Mastermind had given me a digital family to cross the finish line with. Absolutely the best to you and your fam and our future. Cheers, my man. Cheers to that. Cheers to everybody watching. Thank you for the kind words and being part of the community. And yeah, absolutely. This is, a gift the last 5 years for people to be able to accumulate this asset at the values that we had it and it, for what it's about to be used for. And yeah, shout out to you. Thank you, Matt. I got one more super chat over here. We got Amorn. I'm going to butcher it. It ends with 3013. They say, hey, Jake, Happy New Year is coming soon. So very Happy New Year to you and your family. Wanted to know in Discord DM, is this really you, beyondbroke._0? Also, tomorrow is the 31st of December. The XRP price will move to $100. That is not me in the Discord. I will not message you. You can message me, but I will not message you. So if anybody messages you when you join the mastermind, that's a scam. It's not real. You should report them. I would highly recommend changing your settings, when you get in there to make it where only people in the community can message you. Wake up, Uncle Danny. Price appreciation incoming. Justin Kincaid. Good to see you, my dude. How does XRP move to $100? Very quickly is the answer. It'll be a supply shock. I've talked about this before. You're going to see huge demand for XRP across the exchanges for back-end settlement of the stock market by the ETFs and other institutions. It'll be institutional FOMO all at the same time, with very little supply left on exchanges for people to purchase or institutions to purchase. And with that, you're going to see the price run to 3 digits in a very short period, and then start to be used on the back end of the stock market to settle. This person says, where do I sign up for the mastermind? You want to go to beyondbroke.com is the website. And then again, you can use the code BEYONDBROKE, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you the first month with a little bit of a discount there before we likely close it out in just a few days. So, all right. I do have a couple more super chats, and I'm probably not going to get to them all. So just know that, and I apologize if I don't get to that. Please reach out to our team, send it over social media or email, and they will pass it along to me to read on next week's live on the Monday. Like the champ says, dude, where's the chain? Well, I hope all is well. Do you think the banks would rather use their own shared ledger, need XRP, and recycle liquidity so institutions holding is needed? We've talked about this a lot of times. Again, it can't be a centralized party that controls something. They don't trust each other. After 08, the banks do not trust each other. And they don't want to share their information with other banks. So you need siloed permissioned ecosystems that are interoperable between a trustless permissioned or trustless semi-permissioned public chain like the XRPL. And that's why you're looking for permissioned domains and permissioned dexes to go live on the XRPL. And at that point, we will see institutional adoption. And again, price and clarity around the asset, I think, are going to play a role. I think there was one more super chat. Well, yeah, here we go. Info Man 1 says, Jake of all trades, I'm back in the masterminds. Those 3 other Jakes and Alexes were soundly ignored. Trust. Cheers, my North Texas brother. Appreciate you, man. Glad you evaded the fake Jakes. There's lots of fakes out there. I'm real. I do not have AI, and many people think I do for whatever reason. Then they come see me at an event, and they're like, you do have legs. But yeah, stay away. There are a lot of fake accounts out there across social media. We do our best to get them removed, but there's every time we delete one, 3 more pop up. They're like a hydra. So be vigilant. Don't get scammed. I will never ask you for your XRP. I'll never tell you to send your XRP anywhere. I don't work at Digital Wealth Partners. Our whole team over there is financial advisors. They're going to be the ones that help you move your assets into Anchorage if that's something you want. So again, if you ever have me message you, I wish I had time to sit around and message people. I don't. You can message me, but I won't message you. So we'll go ahead and wrap it on that note. Thank you guys for taking time out of your Monday to come hang out with me. I wish you all a very, 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 very happy New Year, right down to the last minute with all the fun that's about to happen here moving into the new year. And I wish 2026 is the best year of your life for everybody watching. I'm pretty confident it's going to be. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Again, if you need the LLC, you can reach out, go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF50 OFFDAG LLC. Get you everything end to end for $2,000. You can also add the living trust there for $500 more, which is the best value you're going to get out of anybody pretty much ever for a living trust. I don't know why we're still selling it that cheap. If you do need the wealth management, that's digitalwealthpartners.net. Make sure it's .net and not anything else, because there are some scam sites out there. You want to make sure it's digitalwealthpartners.net if you want to work with us at DWP and custody your assets at Anchorage and get all the fun stuff for access to fun stuff they have there. And then last but not least, again, the code that says, again, 50OFF50 OFFDAG is the one for the LLC. And for the mastermind, it's Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1. And then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for a little bit of a discount. And again, as price moves here in the next couple of days, we're locking that down. So with that, God bless. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.